The lantern wavers in the night, its light trembling against the bark of tall pines as the carriage lurches over the rutted road. Mud splashes against the wheels, and each turn feels like a descent into a deeper shadow. Inside, the air is close with sweat and worry, wool cloaks pulled tight against the cold that seeps through every seam. A father's hands clutch the reins with a grip that has grown white from hours of fear, while his children lean against their mother's side, eyes wide, ears filled with the rattle of iron rims against stone. They do not speak, for silence has become a shield, and every word might seem like an invitation to the darkness outside. The green book rests open in the mother's lap, its pages inked with fragile hope, a promise whispered by those who had traveled this road before. It is not a book of poetry nor prayer, and yet it is revered like scripture. Beyond the glass, the forest closes in, its branches groaning with the weight of night. The smell of damp earth mingles with the tang of coal smoke drifting from unseen chimneys, a reminder that warmth exists somewhere close, but not for them. For Black travelers on this road, every doorway is a test, every window a threat. A house lit by candles is no invitation, but a warning that strangers are watched, judged, weighed in silence. The whippoorwill calls in the distance, its voice mournful, like a lament for all those who had ridden before and never reached their safe haven. A child leans forward, pressing his face to the carriage glass, and whispers, "Will we sleep soon?" His mother's hand trembles as she strokes his hair, but her eyes do not leave the fragile book in her lap. She knows too well that sleep is no gift. It can be the most dangerous act of all. The coach groans as it halts before a small roadside inn. Its timbers are swollen from rain, the paint stripped by years of weather, its sign creaking like a noose in the wind. The father climbs down, boots sinking into mud, his breath misting in the night air. He straightens his shoulders, though fear coils in his chest like a serpent. Inside, the inn glows with firelight. Tankards slam upon rough wooden tables, voices rise in coarse laughter, the smell of ale and meat thick in the air. Yet when he steps across the threshold, silence sharpens the room, eyes turn. A mug is lowered mid-lift. The warmth of the fire does not reach him. He asks for a room, his voice steady though his heart drums like a war beat. The innkeeper's eyes linger, his smile thin, his answer measured. A room is given, but the exchange carries a weight, not welcome, but warning. Coins change hands, the iron key cold as judgment in his palm. Upstairs, the family steps into a chamber that smells of mildew and straw. The bed is sunken, its linens damp, its frame groaning like old bones. The children shiver as their mother pulls them close, wrapping them in cloaks that still carry the scent of the road. She does not light a candle. Darkness is safer. In darkness, they are less visible. Through the thin boards of the floor, the father hears voices below. A laugh too sharp, a pause too long, boots scraping against stone. The inn is not a refuge, but a test of endurance. He sits awake by the door, hand resting upon the latch, listening to every creak and whisper of the building. The mother clutches the green book close, its pages worn from fingers tracing names of safe havens scattered across a hostile land. For every address written, 1,000 doors remain barred. The children drift into uneasy sleep, their small bodies twitching with dreams that will be forgotten by dawn. Yet even in slumber, their breaths are shallow, as though their young hearts have already learned the art of vigilance. The hours drag heavy, time itself warped by fear. The candle guttering in the hall outside becomes a specter, its flame flaring and shrinking, as if threatened by unseen breath. Somewhere a door closes, the sound like a coffin lid. The mother's eyes never close. She stares into the dark, ears attuned to the smallest rustle, the faintest shift of timber. To sleep here feels like an act of surrender, and surrender is a risk she cannot take. She remembers the stories whispered in kitchens and pews, of families dragged from rooms at midnight, of travelers who vanished without trace, of children who never saw dawn. These memories are not ghosts of the distant past, but warnings that cling like frost to every mile of their journey. At last, the first hint of light seeps through the warped shutters, pale and cold. Morning does not bring relief, only the chance to leave without incident. The family gathers their few belongings, the children rubbing their eyes, their father's jaw clenched tight. They descend the crooked stairs, pass through the tavern where stale ale still lingers in the air, and step once more into the road. The innkeeper nods, his expression unreadable, and they move quickly, not daring to look back. The carriage wheels begin their slow grind again, carrying them further down the endless road of vigilance. In the carriage, the green book rests once more in the mother's lap. Its pages are smudged, fragile, yet it glows faintly in the new light. To some, it might seem an ordinary guide, a simple list of addresses. But to them, it is salvation bound in paper, a pact between strangers, a fragile shield against a world that offers no sanctuary. As the pines thin and the morning sun filters through, they ride on, their bodies weary, their spirits tempered by another night endured. Yet even in the pale light of day, the question lingers in every glance, every pause. Where will they sleep next? The road stretches on, unbroken, the sound of hooves steady as a heartbeat. Behind them lies a night survived. Before them lies another test, another door, another weighing of their worth in a world that demands proof of belonging. And so the story moves forward, into the unknown. Each turn of the wheel echoing with the unspoken truth. Survival itself is their inheritance, and the green book is the fragile map that keeps their story alive. The sign sways on rusted chains above the roadside inn, its paint flaking, the rooster upon it weathered into a ghost of color. Smoke curls from the crooked chimney, carrying the bitter scent of damp wood and charred fat. To weary travelers, it promises refuge. But to those who approach with skin marked by history's cruel judgment, it is no promise at all. The coach halts before the threshold, wheels sinking into mud, the horse's breath steaming in the cold. Within the carriage, silence reigns. The green book rests open in the father's hand, its smudged ink a fragile talisman against the unknown. He glances at the words as if they might whisper assurance, yet even ink cannot shield against a sneer, a refusal, or the night itself. He descends, boots sinking with a wet squelch, and the door creaks open with reluctant welcome. Inside, the hall is lit by wavering lanterns, their smoke clinging to beams blackened by years of soot. Tankards clatter, voices rise, boots stamp on warped planks, yet when the father steps in, sound falters, like a lute string snapped mid-song. The inn is not silent, but the silence around him is sharp, targeted, an absence where welcome should be. The mother gathers the children and follows, their footsteps small, hesitant, echoing against the wooden boards. The smell of sour ale and boiled cabbage thickens the air, mingled with the heat of a crowded room, but warmth does not touch them. A man at the bar mutters beneath his breath. Another stare lingers too long. The innkeeper's smile when it comes is stretched thin, as though painted upon a mask. "A room?" the father asks, his voice steady. The reply is measured, drawn out, the key sliding across the counter with the weight of suspicion. The metal is cold as death in his palm, its jagged teeth biting his skin. He nods, says nothing more, and gathers his family toward the narrow stair. Behind them, the laughter resumes, louder now, mocking in its cadence. The room is small, its air damp, walls cracked, a single bed sagging under the weight of years. The mattress smells of mildew, the linen stained, the quilt patched and frayed. A candle guttering on the table throws shadows like bars across the floor. The children cling to their mother's skirts, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. She kneels, pulling them close, whispering words of comfort she scarcely believes herself. Her hand lingers on the green book, placed upon the nightstand like scripture, its presence the only fragile barrier against the world outside. They do not undress. The father sits by the door, back rigid, ears tuned to every groan of timber, every footstep upon the boards. The mother lies with the children, their small bodies curled beneath her cloak, the air thick with the smell of damp wool and candle smoke. Sleep does not come easily. It hangs above them like a trap, tempting, dangerous. For here in this thin-walled chamber, sleep is surrender, and surrender could mean vanishing into the silence of the night. From below drift sounds of boots against planks, a mug shattered against stone, laughter that cuts too sharp and stops too suddenly. The father's heart pounds with each creak of the stairs, each murmur too close to their door. He imagines the latch turning, the door splintering, the night erupting into violence. He grips the chair, knuckles pale, breath shallow. Hours pass, stretched thin by fear. The candle burns low, its wax pooling like blood upon the wood. Shadows writhe upon the wall, and each one feels alive, watching. The children drift at last into uneasy slumber, their dreams restless, haunted by the unspoken fear they have absorbed. Their mother strokes their hair, eyes unblinking in the dark. She remembers the stories told in hushed tones, of families turned away into the cold, of travelers dragged from beds in the dead of night, of children whose cries were smothered by walls that did not protect them. The Green Book had promised safety, but promises are fragile things when tested by the weight of hate. Outside, the wind howls through the eaves, rattling shutters, carrying with it the scent of rain and distant smoke. The inn creaks and groans, each sound a reminder that the building itself seems complicit, steeped in years of silence. Yet through it all, they endure. They whisper prayers into the darkness, holding vigil as the night drags its heavy body across the sky. At last, dawn seeps through the cracks of the shutters, a pale light washing the room in fragile silver. The candle has burned itself to a stub, leaving only the sharp scent of extinguished smoke. The family rises without a word, their faces hollow with exhaustion, their breaths shallow but steady. They gather their belongings quickly, every gesture purposeful, every sound hushed. Descending the stairs, they pass through the tavern once more. The innkeeper nods, his expression unreadable, and others glance up from their mugs, their faces marked with indifference. Yet indifference is mercy compared to what could have been. The father does not linger. Coins are left behind, not for gratitude, but for silence. Outside, the morning air is cold and sharp, the road glistening with rain. The horses snort, their breath rising like smoke, eager to be free of the place. The family climbs back into the carriage, the Green Book once again clutched tightly in the mother's hand. The wheels begin to turn, slow at first, then steady, carrying them away from the shadows of the inn. They ride on, not in peace, but in survival. Behind them lies a night endured, a chamber haunted by silence, a sleep never taken. Ahead lies another road, another test, another threshold to cross. The Green Book does not promise comfort, only the chance to continue. And for those who carry it, that chance is everything. And so they move forward into the gray light of dawn, the road stretching endlessly before them, each turn of the wheel a reminder that in this land, even rest is contested, and every night survived is a fragile victory. The wooden sign moans in the wind, its chain straining, its painted rooster worn down to a pale ghost of red and gold. Beneath it stands the inn, its walls swollen by years of storm, its shutters warped, its windows streaked with soot. Hearth smoke drifts into the autumn night, and the air is thick with the mingled smells of wet earth, manure, and charred meat. The carriage halts before the crooked door. The family inside lingers for a moment, unwilling to step into what awaits. Their breath hangs white in the chill. The father fingers the leather-bound book resting at his side, the Green Book, its spine cracked, its pages carrying the whispered survival of countless journeys like theirs. He traces the words as though they were carved prayers, fragile against the vast silence of the land. He climbs down first, boots sinking into mud. His jaw set, though his heart beats like a trapped bird. He lifts his hand, helps his wife, then the children, their faces pale in the lantern glow. Together they cross the threshold, and as the door creaks open, warmth spills out in a sudden rush. Fire crackling in the hearth, mugs clinking, voices raised in coarse laughter. Yet the moment their presence fills the frame, the air falters. Laughter cuts short. Eyes turn heavy, unblinking, narrowing into silence. The warmth does not reach them. The innkeeper appears, a broad man with a lined face and a smile too tight to be true. Evening. The father says, his voice steady. A room for the night. The pause before the reply stretches long, measured, weighted. Then, at last, a key slides across the counter, its iron teeth catching the firelight like a blade. Upstairs, the man mutters. No welcome, no kindness. The family takes the stairs, each step groaning, each creak echoing the truth. They are not wanted here. The chamber is dim, its plaster walls cracked, its beams sagging like tired shoulders. A single bed squats in the corner, its linens yellowed, its mattress sunken as though generations of bodies had pressed it into a shallow grave. The smell of mildew and damp hay fills the air. A candle on the nightstand flickers, smoke curling upward like a warning. The mother draws the children close, pulling her cloak over them as though the cloth itself might shield them. The father sets the Green Book upon the table. Its pages spread open to the names of havens scattered like faint stars across a dark sky. But here, in this inn, those stars feel far away, unreachable. From below, laughter resumes, sharper now, tinged with something meaner. A mug shatters, the sound carrying like a shot through the boards. The father stiffens, listening. He moves to the door, slides the chair against it, and sits, his hand resting upon the latch, his ears tuned to the slightest shift in the house's breath. He has no sword, no musket, only vigilance, only will. The mother hums softly, barely above a whisper, stroking her children's hair, though her own eyes remain open, hard as stone. The night deepens. Voices climb the stairwell and then retreat. Footsteps halt outside their door, linger, then pass. The boards creak like old bones, each sound a dagger poised above them. The father does not move, though his muscles ache. He listens until silence floods the room again, heavy and complete. The candle burns low, its wax dripping slow tears down its side. Shadows sway across the walls, writhing like things alive. Sleep comes for the children first. Their breaths fall into fragile rhythm, shallow and quick, their bodies curled against their mother's side. But the parents do not follow them into that surrender. For them, sleep is peril, rest is risk. They trade whispers in the dark, fragments of memory, fragments of fear. She reminds him of another inn, another door slammed, another night spent in the carriage with frost creeping in. He says nothing, only nods, his gaze fixed upon the door, his silence a vow. The green book lies open still, its letters blurred by candlelight. It is not protection, only guidance, but in this moment it feels like a relic, the fragile chain binding them to unseen allies in scattered towns, to hidden sanctuaries they may never find. Each name upon the page holds a promise, someone who will open a door, someone who will not turn them into the night. Yet tonight, those names are only ink, and ink cannot guard them from the weight of footsteps in the corridor. Hours stretch, the candle gutters, flame shrinking, smoke rising in thin spirals. Beyond the walls, the wind moans across the fields, rattling shutters, carrying the smell of damp leaves and the iron tang of rain. The house groans, its timbers shifting. Then, at last, faint light begins to press through the cracks, gray and weak, the promise of dawn. The family stirs, their bodies heavy with exhaustion, their faces drawn, eyes ringed with shadows. They have not slept. Not truly, but they have endured, and endurance itself feels like survival. The father gathers their few belongings in silence, his movements swift, precise. The mother smooths the children's hair, ties their cloaks, folds the green book once more into her satchel. The stair groans as they descend, and once again all eyes turn. The tavern has not changed. Mugs still clatter, voices still rise, but the silence that greets them is sharper in daylight, stripped of pretense. The innkeeper takes the key without words, his eyes unreadable. Coins are placed upon the counter, not as gratitude but as finality, as purchase of safe passage through the night. Outside, the morning air is raw and cold, the road slick with rain. The carriage waits, its wheels half buried in mud, the horses stamping, eager to move. The family climbs in, their movements quick, practiced. The father cracks the reins, and the wheels begin to turn, carrying them away from the inn with no welcome. Behind them, the sign creaks again, the rooster swaying in the wind, faceless, voiceless, yet heavy with memory. The road stretches onward, gray beneath the pale sky. The green book rests once more upon their laps, its pages smudged, its words fragile, but it remains their guide. Ahead lies another town, another threshold, another night where the question will rise again. Who will grant them shelter, and who will cast them out? The inn fades behind them, but the silence it carved into their hearts does not. It lingers, an echo that will travel with them, a reminder that even the act of sleep has become an act of defiance, and each dawn reached is a victory not easily won. The boarding house leans into the street as if listening, its crooked windows catching the last scraps of dusk, its clapboards the color of old bone. A bell on the door rings too softly when I push it open. Not a welcome, but a warning, muffled by years of dust. Tallow smoke hangs in the narrow hall like a veil. The air is thick with boiled cabbage and coal ash, a stale perfume of the city's tired lungs. I keep my hat brim low and my voice lower, because here, sound is a signal, and strangers are cataloged by tone before they are judged by name. Outside, the carriage waits in the fog. I told them I would only be a moment. Evening, I say, and the word feels like a stone placed gently on a lake, the smallest ripple possible. The woman behind the desk, hair pinned in a crown of gray, jaw set as if clenched since childhood, lifts her eyes. They touch my face, my coat, the leather valise in my hand, then return to the ledger. The pen pauses. The pen proceeds. No smile. A room? I offer, as if I might be asking the weather's permission. Her hand disappears beneath the counter and returns with a key on a frayed cord. Iron teeth glint like a small trap. Top of the stairs, she says. Her voice is a thread pulled tight. The steps are steep and mean. They complain under my weight, broadcasting my progress to everyone whose ears are trained on that corridor. The runner is worn thin down the middle, the path carved by countless souls, some quick to flee, some forced to linger. On the landing, a window peers down into the alley where rain threads shine between ash barrels and a cat watches with a patience that belongs to gods or predators. My door is the last one. The key sticks, fights, then yields. The room is narrow as a sermon and twice as stern. Plaster has peeled in pale petals from the wall. A cot bows its spine. A wash basin trembles on a three-legged table. The smell is mold and old soap, a dampness that has acquired a personality. I do not remove my coat. I set the valise by the door and lay the green book on the bedside table, open to the page that brought me here. The ink is smudged from many careful hands. Names and addresses, yes, but also the hush behind them, the promise that someone somewhere lifted a latch in kindness. In the lamplight, the letters look like stitches on skin, holding something together that the world keeps trying to tear. I touch the page with a fingertip, the way you touch a relic without daring to hope for a miracle. Outside, a cart's iron rim shrieks against a rut, and a far bell tolls one long note that doesn't belong to any church I know. Voices seep through the wall. Not words, only humidity and heat shaped into sound. A man coughs. A woman laughs as if she has learned laughter from a book and only uses it when required. Boards creak. Doors complain about being open or closed. I sit on the edge of the cot and listen to the house breathe. Houses breathe, though most people pretend they do not. They carry smoke and rumor. They carry footfall. They carry malice the way a lantern carries a hidden moth. I think of the carriage in the fog. The children's faces pressed to the glass, the way they watch my mouth for answers even when I have none to spare. We will sleep, I told them, and the word felt like a rope cast across black water. Thin, frayed, yet the only rope we had. My wife's hand had found mine. She did not squeeze, she just let the weight of her fingers lie there, and it steadied me more than any chain of iron could. Something scratches down the corridor. Shoes? Rat? Intention? In this place, the difference matters. The lamp flickers as if a breath passed close. I move the chair against the door and settle into it. The wood is slick beneath my palm, polished by the anxieties of strangers. On the table, the lamp's chimney wears a collar of soot. In its faint halo, the green book glows a weary green, the color of river reed and tarnished hope. Time fattens when you fear it. Minutes become rooms you must walk through, touching every wall for a hidden door. Below me, the boarding house murmurs like a hive, deciding what to do with a foreign queen. I close my eyes without sleeping and pray without words. The prayers my mother taught me as a boy had cadences I loved, the Latin rhythms our pastor loved to show, and the plain English ones my grandmother sang under her breath when the rain came hard. Now I have no music, only a cadence of watchfulness. Breath in, listen. Breath out, listen. At some hour without a number, someone stops on the other side of my door. The wood holds its breath with me. A finger tests the latch, then withdraws. The hallway swallows the steps. My teeth release from one another, and I taste iron where they met. In the room next to mine, a small child coughs 3 times and is hushed by a woman's whisper, and the sound climbs under my ribs and stays there, a bird that will not be evicted. When the lamp gutters, I trim the wick with a thumbnail and save what little light remains. The flame flares, then steadies. Smoke writes a black letter on the ceiling and erases itself. On the green book's open page, I trace the next day's road with my eyes. The column of towns looks like a rosary. I do not need beads to know the sequence. Stop, knock, show the book, measure the face, accept the room or the refusal, choose the door that harms the least. This is liturgy too. Not given by saints, but learned among the living. I hear a match strike, the thin rasp of phosphorus. Pipe smoke threads beneath my door as if looking for someone particular. It smells of sweet leaf and ash and a threat older than either. Don't, I tell the air, and my voice is the smallest sound I have made all night. I cup the lamp's chimney and lower the flame. The room shivers. The cot looks like a thing caught mid-collapse and frozen there between falling and mercy. In windows across the city, night sits like a patient debt. A train calls from the river, a low, sorrowing horn that could be a bull in a far field. People mistake distance for safety, but sound travels like stories. It arrives changed, but it arrives. I think of all the doors in all the towns, the hands that will or will not open them. I think of the ones that opened for us in quiet bravery. A widow with a pantry that smelled of cloves, a deacon with a cellar bed and a psalm for the dark, a woman who rolled out quilts like maps of a country where we might someday belong. The book holds their names. My memory holds their faces. Between page and pulse, a small republic persists. At last, a grayness eases into the seam of the shutter. Dawn is a shy visitor, and I greet it like a surgeon, grateful, wary, already planning the next cut. I stand, and my knees answer with a stiffness earned from having sat in the shape of fear. The chair scrapes the floor. The sound too loud, and a dog barks outside as if I have committed a crime against silence. I cap the lamp, slide the green book into the inner pocket of my coat where my heartbeat can keep it warm, and lift the valise. The key fights less on its way out than it did in. Downstairs, the desk woman is there again, as if she has not moved or slept. I place the key on the scarred wood. Coins follow, enough to pay, enough to be remembered as quiet. She nods once. Her eyes flick to my hands, then to the door, then away. Outside, the morning is made of wet brick and laundry lines and the white steam of horses. My breath ghosts out and returns like a kept promise. The carriage waits where I left it, wheels sunk a finger's width in mud. The children lift their faces at once, like morning glories following a sun they trust more than I do. My wife's eyes find mine. We do not speak, and in that unspeaking, we both count what was risked and what was spared. I climb up. The leather reins feel like reins in a dream, too soft, too light. The horse tosses its head, bells on the harness offering a small, bright music that dares to sound cheerful. As we pull away, a church bell strikes, not a call to worship, but the hour, enormous and indifferent. The boarding house watches us go with its crooked eyes. The road carries us the way a river carries a fallen branch, easily, with intent we cannot see. Puddles hold small worlds. Smoke rises from cook stoves, bread smells keep to themselves. A boy on a stoop counts marble chips against the curb, lips moving in math. We pass him like we pass everything, gentle enough not to wake trouble, fast enough to outrun it if it wakes on its own. In my pocket, the green book warms to the body that has borrowed it. Each mile will lay its cheek on our shoulders. Each mile will lift it again. When the city thins into fields, the air changes from ash to damp hay. Crows lift from a fence post like a piece of the fence-grown wings. We pass a string of laundry that includes a blue dress too small for any of us, and the sight snags something delicate in the chest. I speak finally, not to the children who are drowsing with their foreheads touching, but to the space between us all. We move until we find a door that opens, I say. We move until the night shows us one honest lantern. The horses answer with their steady, indifferent trust. A wind comes up. It smells of rain and road tar, tin pails and wet rope. The sky lowers its lid and we travel under it, quiet as contraband, purposeful as a procession. I keep one eye on the ditch where water runs fast, one eye on the horizon where the day hoards its light. In this life, forward is the only direction luxury has left us. The next town is a line on a page. The next page a breath in a tired body. We will read as far as we can. We will stop when we must. And when the sun folds itself into the trees and the road pulls its dark veil tight, we will look again for a window that does not dim, for a door that opens without flinching, for a porch where a lantern burns honest and steady. If none appear, we will keep to the road's black ribbon, moving through the hours that would rather swallow us than shelter us. Sleep will hover like a bird that cannot land. We will hold out our hands and drive on, waiting for a branch that will bear its weight. Before the sun lifts its pale coin over the fields, we rise, thanked by a house that took us in, and a woman who held the door steady while we crossed its threshold. Bread crusts wrapped in cloth, a jar of milk still cool from the spring house, a nod that means go while the road is soft with morning, and the dogs are still dreaming. We leave quietly, voices kept in the narrow register of gratitude, and the porch lantern, honest and small. Burns a last moment after the door closes, then fades into the gray. The horses snort steam into the chill. Leather creaks. The reins in my hands are ropes to the day. The lane is lined with dew-drunk grass. Wagon ruts brim with last night's rain. We pass a scarecrow stitched from a man's coat, hat sagging as if listening. Crows pivot along the fence line and lift in a black ribbon when the wheels crack a branch. The road is a patient thing, unspooling ahead of us with the quiet of a needle finding its way through cloth. The children, warm under quilts, drowse as the carriage rocks. My wife keeps one hand on their shoulders and the other on the green book folded inside her cloak, its corners softened by worry and faith. By mid-morning, the sky lowers and the light goes tin-colored. We pause beneath an elm that wears its moss like old velvet, and we pass the bread between us, saving more than we eat. The youngest has crumbs on his lip. He stares at the stitching on my glove as if the pattern could tell him where the road ends. "Tonight?" he asks, not finishing the sentence. "Tonight," I answer, without promising what the word should hold. Wind combs the field in long strokes. Somewhere a bell rings for a funeral or for noon. Both sound the same when you are far from the church. After the elm, the land grows narrow and mean. Ditches deepen as if waiting. The few houses we pass have curtains like lids pulled down against us. Smoke bends flat in the wind. A dog uncoils from a porch and gives chase, teeth bright, a chain singing a metal note that snaps him back before he can taste the wood of our wheel. We do not slow. Vigilance wears its own face in daylight. Not panic, but arithmetic. How many miles to the name in the book? What if the name has moved or died or changed its mind? How long before the light and the law begin to belong to other men? The first rain comes sudden, thick, cold. The road oils into slick clay. The horses splay their legs and work to keep footing. My wife makes a tent of her cloak over the children as the water falls with a sound like salt poured from a height. We turn off the main road to a cut where trees knit their fingers overhead. And there we wait, the carriage ticking with chill, our breaths making small clouds we could read like omens if we wanted to. A farmer passes with a cart of kindling under a patched tarp and glances once, then twice, then hard enough to leave an imprint on the air. He does not stop. I count that as luck and let the number sit on my tongue like a nail. When the rain thins, we move again. The world smells of iron and wet leaves, of the inside of the ground where roots hold secrets. The children sleep and wake and sleep, catching pieces of rest the way a net catches small fish, enough to keep a body going, not enough to make a feast. Afternoon dies without drama, as if exhausted by its own weather. Along a stretch of road lined with sycamores, a sheriff's star glints in a window like a tooth. We look away in the exact same moment, as if we have practiced the gesture all our lives. The name we chase lives at the edge of the next town. The book says where the road splits like a Y in a child's primer. I speak the address under my breath to keep it warm while daylight bleeds out of the ditch. Houses begin. Porches begin. Eyes begin. We ride with our backs straight and our faces mild. The town is not a word you can trust. It carries echoes, posted signs, posted men, posted rules. The storekeeper sweeping his threshold pauses, rests his broom like a rifle across his shoulder. He watches us pass as if counting what we are carrying and what we are hiding. Our shadows row beside us, long and obedient. At the fork stands a whitewashed church and a bell that needs no one to ring it. The wind touches its lip and it answers with a small sound like a swallowed sob. The house we seek sits beyond, a square of light behind lace, a porch with a rocker that gestures without moving. We stop at the gate. The fence paint flakes like snow. I climb down, my boots taking the road's weight into themselves. My knuckles meet the wood of the door. The knock is not timid or bold, it is exact. On the third breath, the bolt withdraws, and a face appears, kind and careful, eyes quick and measuring. She looks at me, at the children, at the book in my hand, and she opens the door just wide enough to be a promise. "You'll eat," she says, as if answering a prayer we were too tired to speak. Inside, the warmth finds us. The air is baked bread, onion and butter, a clean floor rubbed with vinegar and resolve. She lays bowls on a wooden table without ceremony and sets a pitcher where the light finds it and makes it glow. We eat without greed. She watches a minute to see that the food performs its mercy, then nods as if dismissed from attention and leaves us to it. After, She shows us a room at the back where quilts bloom like gardens in winter. The window is latched, the latch not rusted. The children fold into the bed as if they always knew this place, even when they did not. We do not undress beyond the boots. I place the green book upon the chair, the way a guard leans his pike against a door. My wife loosens the cloth around her hair and lets it fall, heavy and black as a sky before storm. There is a wash basin with a nick in the rim and a pitcher with a hairline vein that glints when the lantern wobbles. Small things belong to someone. A house full of small things says we might belong here for a night. That is as much country as we can claim without papers the law will honor. Sleep should come like tide, but it hesitates, held back by an invisible moon. We have learned the grammar of vigilance too well to mispronounce it because someone has set a clean sheet across our shoulders. I sit by the window and count the beats of the bell that only the wind rings. My wife murmurs a hymn in a hymnless key. The children mutter in their dreams, little scraps of day stuck in their teeth, a dog's chain, a farmer's stare, rain's drumming. My hands remember other nights and do not unclench without being asked. When sleep finally fastens its stitch, it is not generous. It takes and it gives back with the smell of damp wood and a picture of a door that will not open. I surface because the house has changed its breathing. Someone is up, moving carefully, a board whispering under a foot near the kitchen. There is no menace in it, only a life doing what life does when it does not sleep, checking the stove, covering the bread, setting water for morning. I let the sound carry me a little farther into rest, then let it go. What wakes me for good is quiet, real quiet, the kind that seems to say a bargain has been struck. You may go, but not far, and you must take your fear with you because it is part of the price. Dawn pushes its pale thumb into the room. The quilts confess their colors. The pitcher's crack turns into a river on china. I rise without scraping the chair. The children blink like owlets. We make the bed we have used. We fold the quilts we have borrowed. We speak thanks softly so the house can keep it. At the door, the woman accepts no coins and accepts them both. She lets the metal disappear into a jar where other nights have been saved. The road keeps some things it shouldn't, she says, not unkindly. Mind what you let it take. We promise we will, as if we can promise such a thing. She hands me a small paper twist of salt and says nothing else. We understand. Salt keeps rot where it belongs. Back on the road, the town shrinks in the rear window of morning. The horses find their rhythm. The wheels resume the old song. Iron to stone, stone to iron, the measure a heart could live by if a heart had the choice. We travel between fields where scarecrows lift their sleeves like witnesses who have sworn too often. The sugar of the woman's cornbread still lingers on the children's tongues. My wife tucks the paper of salt inside the green book, between the page we used and the one we will need. By afternoon, the sky is alit again, and the wind hauls weather across the flats like a cartful of wet laundry. We could stop in a stand of pines, where pine needles make the ground smell like a remembered chapel. But the map in my mind tilts me further on, toward a boarding house marked with asterisk and the word reliable in a hand I think I can trust. The light thins. A jay scolds us for moving in the hour when foxes fold themselves into their own shadows. The ditch water blackens. I count the turnings like rosary beads and lose one and count again. The first lamp of the next town burns a sick color, coal and window grime, and the second lamp burns nothing at all because its glass is broken. We go in anyway. Night is not a thing that asks your counsel. The boarding house is a throat of stairs and a smell of stewed meat and a landlord whose eyes measure us and decide we can be measured. We take the room with the window that sticks and the door that stares, and we do every small ritual we have learned. Chair to latch, lamp wick trimmed, boots to the side where stumbling will not make noise. Book on the table, children wrapped, prayer slipped under breath like a blade under cloth. In the hush that follows, my wife opens the green book and checks the next address, and the next and the next. Ink on paper, breath in body. One frail thing speaking to another across a gap the size of a country. I trace the names with a forefinger as if I could warm them awake. The ink has bled a little at the vowels. The pages smell faintly of dust and something sweeter, old glue, perhaps, or the ghost of a pressman's shop where a man who believed in safe passage pulled a lever until his arm sang. The road has taught us to ask little, to ask well, to ask again. Still, I ask the page to hold. I ask the door to hold. I ask the night to give us back to the dawn as we are, and not as a story told in warning whispers. The lamp lowers itself, tired of its own work. The children lean toward sleep like flowers toward a known light. I close the book and set my palm atop it, a seal, a prayer, a promise that has nothing to do with law and everything to do with hands. Beyond the wall, another guest turns on a narrow mattress. Beyond the building, the town paces its cage. Beyond the town, the road runs like a vein toward a body that cannot admit we are its blood. We will follow it. We will read what is written for us in this green of maps and margins. And when the next page turns and the next door waits, we will lift the latch with the gentleness of thieves and the courage of pilgrims, trusting the silent map that has carried us this far to point, again, toward the small, bright rooms where the dark cannot purchase our sleep. The lamplight falters, and with it the night begins its slow procession. The boarding house groans in its bones, every beam shifting with the wind, every stair murmuring with weight remembered. The air is steeped in the scent of boiled meat and wet wool, the residue of lives pressed too close together. I sit by the door, the chair braced against the latch, while the children lie restless under borrowed quilts. Their breathing is shallow, not the breathing of peace, but of bodies fighting exhaustion with the memory of danger. My wife strokes their hair, her hand moving in a rhythm older than words. She hums something she once sang in church, soft as smoke, a melody meant to trick the night into mercy. Through the thin walls, voices drift, laughter too loud, the scrape of boots, a match struck and left to smolder. The boarding house is alive with unseen figures, and I count each sound like beads upon a rosary of vigilance. When silence falls, it is not relief but warning, the kind of silence that makes your pulse lean forward to listen. The green book lies open on the table, its inked names glowing faintly in the lamp's fading light. I touch the page as though to steady it, as though steadying ink could steady fate. At some hour without number, footsteps halt outside our door. A pause, longer than it should be. The children stir in their sleep. My hand closes around the back of the chair, ready to hurl it against the door if the latch moves. But the footsteps retreat, boards creaking like old trees, until only the wind remains. My chest unclenches, but sleep does not follow. Vigilance has written itself into the marrow. Toward dawn, the air grows damp and cold. The candle gutters, its wax a pool hardened into the wood, shadows thin as the sky shifts from black to bruised gray. I rise, my knees stiff, and gather our things. My wife wakes the children with a whisper, tucking the green book into her satchel as if she were hiding a relic from thieves. We leave the room as though it were a tomb we dare not disturb. Down the stair, the landlord waits at his desk, a coin box at his elbow. His eyes flicker to the children, then to the book-shaped bulge in her cloak. I place the key on the scarred wood and slide coins across. He takes them without words. Silence hangs between us, as taut as rope. Then we step into the street. Morning light slants low across the cobbles, pale and thin. The carriage waits, wheels mired in last night's rain. The horses snort steam into the air, eager to be gone. We climb in quickly, every movement deliberate, rehearsed. The road beyond the town stretches long and wet, its ruts filled with silver water. The sound of the wheels biting into the mud is like a heartbeat, steady, certain. Behind us, the boarding house looms with its crooked windows and its door that has both given and withheld. It watches us leave, a silent witness. Ahead lies another road, another town, another threshold. The green book is once more in my hands, its paper softened by worry, its ink the only map we can trust. The children lean against one another, their eyes heavy, yet they resist sleep as if it were betrayal. My wife closes her eyes for a moment, her head against the frame, her breath a quiet hymn. I look at them all and know the truth carved into every mile. We are pilgrims not toward a promised land, but toward the fragile mercy of night-to-night survival. The sky is clearing. A bell tolls far off, not for us, but we take its sound as if it were a sign. The horses quicken their pace, and the road carries us onward, away from whispers and locked doors, toward whatever lantern will burn tonight, honest and steady against the dark.